Imagine solving a murder without a witness, without a suspect, just a sliver of DNA buried for decades. What if one tiny genetic clue could bring a killer to justice 40 years later? In today's True Crime Dive, we'll reveal 4 haunting cold cases where time stood still until DNA rewrote history. From false imprisonments to long-lost identities, this isn't just about catching killers, it's about restoring truth. For decades, these cold cases haunted families, detectives, and entire communities. But today, science is doing what witnesses and time could not, revealing the truth. In this video, we'll take you deep into 4 true crime cases that were frozen in time, until DNA technology cracked them open. You'll see how modern forensic genealogy isn't just catching killers, it's rewriting history. If you're someone who believes the truth should never be buried, hit that like button right now. And if you want justice stories that give chills, make sure to subscribe to Crime Cipher, because the truth always leaves a trace. You're watching Crime Cipher, the place where justice has no expiration date. Hit that like button if you believe no case should stay cold, and subscribe for weekly cases solved with science, obsession, and a relentless pursuit of truth. When science meets justice. In recent years, forensic genealogy has revolutionized cold case investigations. What used to take decades of manual detective work can now be done in days with DNA databases and family tree mapping. Using tiny genetic clues and publicly available ancestry profiles, law enforcement is now identifying both victims and suspects with astonishing precision. In this video, we'll explore 4 haunting cases from Oregon, Massachusetts, Indiana, and California, each long frozen in time, and each finally cracked with the help of DNA. These aren't just stories of murder. They're stories of redemption, exoneration, and long-awaited closure. The 1983 Oregon case, Teresa Peroni, identified. In 1997, a skull was discovered in a wooded area near La Pine, Oregon. For over 2 decades, the identity of the victim remained unknown. Local police and FBI efforts came up short, leaving the case to gather dust. But in 2024, advanced DNA sequencing compared the skull's profile against a national missing persons database, and finally matched it to Teresa Peroni, a 19-year-old who vanished in 1983. With that match, the case reignited. Investigators located new leads, re-interviewed past suspects, and by late 2024, a man named Douglas Price, long under suspicion, was arrested. His DNA matched crime scene traces previously thought too degraded to analyze. This case is a powerful example of how time cannot erase evidence, only bury it temporarily. And thanks to DNA, even the buried can speak again. Massachusetts, 1980, a wrongfully imprisoned man freed. Katerina Brau was murdered in her Massachusetts home in 1980, and a man named Samuel Wright was quickly arrested and convicted. For 20 years, he maintained his innocence while behind bars. It wasn't until 2023, when DNA from the crime scene was finally uploaded into a national genealogical database, that a match surfaced. Michael Boudreau. Boudreau, now elderly and living in Florida, had never even been considered a suspect. Once confronted with the evidence, he confessed. Wright was exonerated after 2 decades in prison, and Brau's family was left with the emotional whiplash of knowing the wrong man was blamed all those years. This case proves that forensic science not only delivers justice, it corrects injustice. And for families like Katerina's, that truth changes everything. Indiana, 1972, the mother-daughter tragedy. Phyllis Baylor and her 4-year-old daughter were found shot in their Indiana home in 1972. Police were horrified by the brutality of the scene, but they had little to go on. The killer left no clear evidence, and the toddler, left alive but traumatized, couldn't speak clearly. The case went cold for over 50 years. But in 2023, forensic genealogists used crime scene DNA and built a family tree leading straight to Fred Allen Lieneman, who died in the 1990s. Lieneman had no criminal record, no obvious motive, but his DNA never lied. For Phyllis's surviving family, the revelation was bittersweet. Justice had come, but it had arrived far too late. Still, The power of forensic genealogy gave them answers no one else could. Concord, 1994. DNA sealed the killer's fate. In 1994, Terry Ladwig was murdered in her home in Concord, California. Her husband, Larry Ladwig, claimed a home invasion, but investigators had their doubts. For years, the case dragged on without resolution. Then, a strange clue emerged. 2 plastic cups found at the crime scene with partial DNA. The technology back then wasn't able to process it. But in 2023, genetic genealogy allowed analysts to trace the DNA found on one of the cups directly to Larry. It wasn't just a hunch anymore. Science confirmed what many already believed. He was arrested and charged nearly 3 decades later. In this case, DNA didn't just confirm suspicions. It provided the missing piece the justice system needed. And it reminded the world that time doesn't erase guilt. The science that solves the coldest cases. So how exactly does forensic genealogy work? It begins with crime scene DNA, either from the victim, the killer, or even old evidence like a cigarette butt or drink cup. That DNA is uploaded into public databases like GeneMatch or Family Tree DNA, where experts can identify relatives and build family trees. Investigators then work backward to narrow down suspects. In modern labs, DNA analysts are becoming the new detectives, silently cracking crimes with nothing but data, algorithms, and patience. And while each match is cause for celebration, not every result is so straightforward. In some cases, DNA leads to relatives, not suspects. Investigators must carefully unravel family trees, cross-reference public records, and sometimes even knock on doors to find living links to the past. The process isn't perfect, but it's fast, data-driven, and often the only thread left to pull. It's especially vital for Jane and John Does, whose identities are mysteries themselves. Without this technology, they might have remained forever lost. With it, nameless victims are finally getting names, and lost souls are being returned to the people who love them. Justice versus privacy, the ethical debate. As powerful as this technology is, it doesn't come without ethical concerns. When police access public genealogy databases, are they infringing on people's privacy? Some argue that sharing DNA, even for good, opens a Pandora's box of surveillance. It's a question society must continue to wrestle with, even as more and more cold cases find resolution. The legacy of solved silence. Each of these cases reminds us that silence doesn't mean the story is over. For decades, families lived with unanswered questions and pain buried beneath years of grief. But with every breakthrough, we're reminded that the past can still speak, and DNA is its voice. These are not just case files. Their lives interrupted, and now, finally, stories completed. As science advances, more doors to long-forgotten rooms are being opened, and the truth is finally stepping into the light. When time becomes the witness. In many of these cases, justice arrived years, sometimes decades after the crime. Hidden evidence, preserved whispers in old files, and forgotten strands of hair all became powerful voices thanks to modern forensic technology. These weren't just cold cases. They were frozen stories waiting for someone to listen. And now, finally, they're being heard by a new generation willing to dig deeper than ever before. From Oregon to Massachusetts, Indiana to California. These are not just stories of death, but of justice rising from the grave. DNA has proven that even after 30, 40, or 50 years, the truth cannot be erased. With every test tube, every genealogical match, and every newly identified suspect, the message becomes clearer. Justice is patient, but it never forgets. Which case gave you chills? Which injustice hit hardest? Drop your thoughts below. We read every theory. Want us to go even deeper into one of these stories? Click subscribe, tap the bell, and join the Crime Cipher community. We uncover the stories others left buried. Because on this channel, silence doesn't mean it's over. It just means we haven't heard from the DNA yet.